mute if you have any questions or you want to ask anything. That is now recording. Perfect. Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Gideon. Gideon Barker, in fact, and I run a research consultancy called Customer IQ. Been working in research for a long time. Been working for myself, running my own business for about 12 years, which has developed from a kind of freelancer and contractor business through to now offering research direct to clients. And my focus is on founders and startups, Customer IQ, and I've recently put out a kind of a new, not a new venture necessarily, but a kind of offshoot of what I do, which is research for founders.com, which is much more aimed at founders who are more bootstrapped, who don't have their own, who don't have investment behind them, and want to kind of manage their own research. But I'm providing some tools and support there to kind of help them. So a couple of websites to check out when we're done. So, oh, that's going back. Let's go forwards. What are we going to do today? As I say, we've got just over 20 minutes left. 3 things I want to do today. Firstly, is provide you with a kind of curated list of some of the best free insight tools that I have found, and many of which I've used for my work. So we'll go through that quickly. The ice cream is there to represent a taster. So we're going to have a look at 3 tools in particular. We're going to be sort of demoing them live. So inevitably something will go wrong. And then the last thing is I want to kind of leave you inspired, really, I guess, to start using some of these tools yourselves and to start, on your insight journey, if that's not too cheesy. But the reason for doing these sessions and more of these sessions, which I'm kind of committing myself to doing 1 a month this year, is to kind of introduce people slowly and gradually to the idea of customer research and the value that it can bring. So let's stop waffling, Gideon, and let's go. So the first few slides, literally just kind of going through a list of tools. I've categorized those tools into different areas, I guess. The first one is I've kind of classified them as data aggregators. So these are websites, tools that kind of bring data together, many of which you may well have come across, perhaps not used. So the Pew Research Center is a US-based research center. It does a lot of research, which is very useful and relevant to the UK, but it does have a kind of US center. But much of what it does is available for free, so it's very worth visiting, checking it out, getting onto their mailing list, because there's often research that's relevant to what's going on at the moment. Tableau, most people will know Tableau. It's a data visualization and kind of analysis tool. It's quite it's very heavily used for enterprise businesses, for kind of visualizing business information, dashboards and stuff. But they offer a free access to I guess a more basic tool which has some free data attached to it as well. So they pull in some data sets which are quite useful, business population data, various data sets that you can kind of interrogate and get to use. Think with Google. I'm a little bit disappointed in that much of what they do now seems to lead people down to the route of buy some Google ads, because it used to be that a lot of the research that Google did was available and kind of publicly shared. And I think there still is if you kind of hunt around, but just be aware if you go to look at Think with Google, you may well be kind of pointed eventually to buying some Google ads, or at least being invited to. Worldometer is again, it's just kind of pulling in data. What I liked about this one is it's got like kind of live counters, so it's got lots of different types of data sets coming in. It's got like how many tweets are sent today, and it's just got this counter that just whizzes up, which is quite fun. But it's also got some useful population data, more kind of societal type data, as well as things like social media and some things that are a bit more sort of pop culture. And then Statista will probably be familiar to many people. You know, when you Google stuff, you want to know kind of certain percentages. It's often Statista that comes up near the top of the results, and often those data sets that they publish are behind a paywall, but there are some that are free, so it's worth checking out. Many of these tools actually have a kind of freemium offer and a paid offer, so it's worth checking out and taking advantage of the free data that's available. Okay, so that's data aggregators. The next set of tools is data collection. So there are 3 survey tools on there. They might not be the most obvious ones. I haven't included SurveyMonkey, haven't included Typeform. The reason for that is they both used to have a free version, a kind of free plan. And from what I could see, either that doesn't exist, or in the case of SurveyMonkey, the free plan is pretty rubbish in my view. I think it only limits you to kind of 10 responses per survey and 10 questions. So you know they're obviously, and they're operating a business. They want people to pay for it. But when I put this together, Smart Survey, Survey Planet, and Survey Hero all had a reasonably good kind of free plan where you could create between some of them, you know, can create unlimited surveys. Many of them have a kind of cap on how many people you can get to complete your surveys, but I think it's around 100, which in many instances is absolutely fine. On the right hand side there, perhaps some that are less familiar, Loops is a tool. It's a kind of survey tool, but it's really worth checking out. The website is useloops.com, and it's a good way for getting some feedback on creative stimulus, on visual stimulus. So if you're working in a creative role and you want to kind of put some people through and test out some of your creative, it could be quite useful tool to use with clients to kind of capture their feedback, depending on the client. Then that's a good tool to check out. Hotjar, I use Hotjar a lot because it's a really good insightful way of looking at what happens when people hit your website. So it literally records people's behavior. I don't know how it works, it's very clever, but it records people's behavior when they're on your website, and then you can watch that recording, literally seeing where they're moving the mouse, where they're clicking, where they're going. And there again, it has a limited free offer, so you can have, I think, a certain number of recordings for free. But if you have a website like mine that has very low traffic, then that kind of works really well. And then Mention is a tool that kind of captures chatter, web-based communication. So it pulls things out of social media, out of Reddit, out of blogs and review sites and stuff, and you can basically set up alerts, a bit like Google Alerts. So if you're interested in a particular brand or a particular theme, you can set up an alert, and it will basically scrape any relevant data to that particular keyword and kind of give you a feed of that. So useful in lots of different ways. You know, if you could use it for business development, you could use it for understanding markets, brands, particularly, I guess, kind of growing brands. Again, they have a free offer. They'd love you to buy and pay for that, but they have a limited free offer. I think you can set up one alert with them. So that's some data collection tools. The next category, data analysis and visualization. So we're going to look at TagCrowd live, excitedly, in a minute. Let's hope that works. YouGov Profiles is a big tool. It's a very expensive kind of, but very good survey-based tool. It has, I think it literally has millions of data points in it, and they offer that as a kind of paid product, but they do offer a light version of that, which has some free data. So again, I haven't used that too much, but it's definitely worth having a look if you're curious about They have data relating to, to various different sectors, brands, behaviors. So it's worth checking that out. It might have something that's useful, relevant to your business or to your client's business. And then on the right hand side there, Google Trends, I really like, it kind of gives you a sense of what's popular and how that popularity is holding or not. And Google Books Ngram Viewer is the equivalent of Google Trends. So Google Trends is monitoring kind of search behavior. Google Books Ngram is monitoring keywords that come up in published books and perhaps journals as well. I'm not sure exactly where the sources come from, but that's quite interesting because it's more of the kind of written word as opposed to the kind of search term. So again, that's another tool that's good to use to identify trends. And then lastly, some tools that are good generally for kind of generating, finding, capturing audience insights. So Answer the Public, again, that's quite well known. It's a good one for really exploring a topic. So you can go in there. It's a good keyword planner, but it also I think is a good kind of audience understanding tool. So if you go in there and you put in a topic, let's say ice cream, that's probably a bit too broad. So to narrow that down a little bit, it will give you a whole load of a list of questions that people have entered into search engines around that topic. So it gives you a really good understanding of what people are asking, what kind of questions are people asking related to that topic. SparkToro, we're going to have a look at that in a minute. That's a really interesting tool. It's relatively new and it's been created by Rand Fishkin, who set up the SEO company Moz. So that's his kind of new offer. Meta Insights. If you have a Facebook account, a Facebook ad account, that's a tool that's available. That you can kind of examine and dig into Facebook usage a little bit more, and you can create an audience and see what the demographic of that audience is. You can have a look at what interests that audience has. So again, it's a good tool. You don't have to buy any ads. Just create the account and you've got access to that tool, and that will give you some interesting profile data of Facebook users, obviously, but there are a lot of them, so they do kind of represent many different groups. Trend watching is again has a limited amount of free trends reports that you can access, which are really interesting. I think if you're looking to kind of understand the zeitgeist, what's happening at the moment, what the cultural phenomena are, then that's a really good starting point to just kind of dive into that and absorb some of that data. And then ChatGPT had to feature, and we're going to have a look at that. Hopefully it will work for us. A couple of reasons why I really like that tool as a research tool, and we'll come on to have a look at that in a second. So I have realized we've got 10 minutes left. I want to have a quick look at 3 different tools. So I'm going to literally kind of spend 2 or 3 minutes on each one, just to kind of show you what they can do. And I'm going to have to stop presenting this screen, and I'm going to have to share a different screen whilst still talking, which is going to be a challenge. Let's give it a go. Okay. So I think you should be able to see TagCrowd. If you can't see TagCrowd, somebody jump off mute and let me know, but otherwise I'll assume you can. So this is, I really like this tool. I use it a lot. It's free. The guy that created it is like, buy me a coffee if you find it useful. And I have bought him a coffee because it is really useful. So what I use it for is to understand and kind of categorize unstructured text. For me, that is often a load of open-ended responses on a survey. You imagine if you've got a survey of 500 or 1,000 or 2,000 people and you're asking an open-ended question, There's loads of interesting responses, but there's just so much data to look at. It's very time consuming to run through each one. So I have some data prepared here, which you could literally just copy and paste it into this tool. There's a few settings here. How many, you probably can't see this detail, it's very small, but you can tell it how many words you want it to appear, what the minimum frequency of the word should be, whether the frequency should be shown or not, and then hit visualize, and it gives you a nice word cloud. Now there are lots of word cloud tools around, but I particularly like this one because the way that it uses the data is the way that it processes the data is good compared to some of the other ones that I've used. And so this question was around what people liked about a new proposition for buying cars. And so, yeah, you know, there's lots of obvious stuff in here like cars, but if you look a little bit beyond that, and obviously the bigger the word, the more frequently it's mentioned. What's interesting here is you get sort of themes like confidence, control, guarantee, trusted. Excuse me, my phone's ringing. And so what you can do if you want to is you can scroll down here and you can actually remove certain words. So if we remove cars, and if we remove buying, which is some of the kind of more generic terms that come through, then some of the other ones kind of lift up to the surface. So things like, you know, I hadn't spotted choices, really important. Clearly, money's interesting. So this gives you a sense of what's going on, but it can also give you some keywords that you want to dig into. So for me, if I'm looking at this, I'd be like, okay, that's really interesting. Let's look at this idea of confidence. Why is that coming up more frequently? What are people saying about confidence and control? That's really good. So that's TagCrowd. Have a play around with that. The next one, my computer's gone to sleep, is SparkToro. So this is the new tool. There he is. Rand Fishkin has created a kind of audience insight tool. There is a free plan. You get 50 searches a month if you sign up for a free plan. And what this does is it gives you different ways of kind of looking. I guess if you're looking at a target audience, if you want to create a target audience or a persona, or you're doing some business development, then this is quite a useful tool. So you can ask it various questions. You can my audience frequently talks about this word, my audience follows this social media account, my audience frequently visits this website, this hashtag. So if we put in a keyword here, my audience frequently talks about, let's put some speech marks to pause. Let's look at venture funding. I don't know why that one appears. It's come the top of my head. Then in a matter of seconds, it will pull out some useful data. So some of the top words that people who are talking about venture funding, what they're talking about, what hashtags they're using, which social media accounts that they're engaging with. I like what it has over here as well as these kind of hidden gems, which, yes, it gives you the most obvious ones, or the highest occurring ones, but it also gives you these kind of smaller ones which have a good concentration of the kind of audience that you're looking for, but aren't huge. So if you're on a limited budget and you want to kind of engage with some influencers or put some paid money behind some people that are talking about venture funding, then these might be the kind of people that you want to engage with some more of these kind of blogs and sites. So interesting. Have a play around with it. There is more to it than I'm sort of able to show you today because we're on limited time, but it's definitely of interest. I use it occasionally. I think I should probably use it some more. 5 minutes to go. What I really wanted to show was obviously ChatGPT. Now I've realized in setting this up that this is probably the least interesting way of visualizing anything because it is so text heavy. So rather than kind of start typing stuff in and watching it create answers for us. I'm sure many of you have probably tested this out and had a look at it. I mean, and you pretty much know what it does. I'm going to jump out of this, stop presenting this, and I'm going to jump back into my slides just to show you what I think is most useful for ChatGPT. There we are. Those are the 3 tools we looked at. So ChatGPT, the couple of ways I've already kind of thought are really useful ways of using that tool are as kind of customer or market discovery. So asking it very direct, specific questions about particular audiences and what their pain points are or what their unmet needs are, gives you very, very quickly a set of bullet points, a kind of a summary of what it's found. And yeah, of course there are drawbacks. Its data set, I think, is limited to 2021 and before, so it doesn't have very, very new data in it, but it's still being developed, and I'm sure that will be something that's released at some point in the future. But what's really good is, you ask it something quite specific, and then it will give you an interesting answer. Maybe some of it's quite obvious, but nonetheless, it feels like it's well researched. And then you can kind of drill into it. Hence, that's why I've put the picture of the drill. You kind of drill into things again and ask for more specific responses. Ask for examples of things, or so you can really dig in and get some quite detailed stuff very, very quickly. And I see ChatGPT as kind of a research assistant, a very fast research assistant that actually you don't have to pay. So at the moment, I'm using it a lot for kind of broadly understanding different audiences, different markets, different sectors, different ways of targeting audiences, and then drilling into that a little bit more and really trying to get some more detail. The other way, so research assistant, absolutely. I've just mentioned that, but what I'm amazed at how quickly and how well it does is like write questionnaires for you, or it might write an interview guide, or it might just give you a process to follow if you want to do your own research. So put some things into there, like what are the steps needed to run a research project using an online survey, and it will give you a step-by-step process, which is pretty good. I've looked at this, and I'd probably follow that, and or write me a questionnaire, a 20-question questionnaire which looks at some certain subject for an audience which includes these themes, and within seconds you've got that. And it might not be perfect, but it's a really good starting point. And I don't know about you, but I suffer from procrastination, and it's often the size of the task ahead of me that makes me kind of put off doing it. So if ChatGPT can kind of break the back of a task for you, and all then you need to do is kind of go through and edit it and fine tune it, it's remarkable. And so I'm not suggesting to any clients that are listening to this, I'm not suggesting any of your surveys will be formulated through ChatGPT, but they might. But of course, there'll be my input on top of that as well. So rest assured. I asked it the other day to create for me a 60-minute interview guide for a certain subject, for a certain audience, and it did it, and it timed it perfectly, and it gave me a really good kind of semi-structured interview guide that I could just without much effort from my side and much kind of refinement needed, I could have just printed that out and gone and done an interview. So it's remarkable, and I'm sure lots of people are using it for lots of different things, but from a research perspective, I would suggest it's like a really good, really kind of willing, really fast, really thoughtful research assistant. And apologies to any research assistants out there if I feel that they're out of a job. It's probably more than that. It's probably an insight director, which is what I call myself. So it's probably putting me out of a job as well. But it's great. It's definitely worth having a look at. So we've got to 2:30. It's the end of the session. I guess what I would also have liked to have done is leave you as an audience with a little bit of inspiration there, some confidence, a bit of permission almost to go out and start using some of these tools yourselves. Whether it's data collection, looking at some free data sets, whether it's playing around with ChatGPT or creating word clouds, there is definitely a lot of really good really accessible tools out there. So I'd encourage you, all of you, to go out, try, give it a go. Please let me know, or share it on social, or let other people know that you're using it. Don't tell them that you found it through me necessarily, but or let me know how you're getting on, because I'd love some feedback. And if at all you ever want to kind of chat to me in more detail about any of this stuff, then because my name's Gideon, there aren't many people called Gideon, I can have the URL Meet Gideon, and it'll take you to my Calendly page and you can book a meeting. Thank you.